Welcome to Sales, Tax, and More, your go-to resource for all things state tax related. Now, here is your host, Michael Fleming.
Hi, everyone. Mike Fleming here, founder of Sales, Tax, and More, and today's co-host of the Sales, Tax, and More podcast, where we talk about everyone's favorite topic, which is, of course, sales tax. And today we're going to be discussing Alaska's economic nexus, brand new, and the Alaska Municipal League with Nils Andreassen. But before we introduce you to today's guest, I want to introduce you to my co-host, Ellie Moffett. Ellie, you want to say hi?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here, as always. I'll do a quick introduction for Sales, Tax, and More, and then we'll get started. It's going to be a really great episode today. So Sales, Tax, and More, we are a full-service consulting and solutions firm. We have a really great team here of experienced tax professionals who are very dedicated to fulfilling your state tax and related needs. So we do a lot of returns, registrations, consultations, research, and like our name states, more. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to answer those for you. So Mike, you want to take it from here?
Sure. As I mentioned, today's guest is Nils Andreassen, and Nils is the current executive director of the Alaska Municipal League. He's also the former executive director of the Institute of the North. He's got a degree in peace and development from the University of Bradford in England, and his background in rural and international development, Alaskan and Arctic policy fits very well within AML's mission, which is to support and strengthen local governments. Nils currently lives in Juneau with his family. And Nils, we appreciate you sharing your knowledge today, about what's happening in Alaska. And before we jump in, do you want to say hi?
Hi, good morning from Alaska. I'm based here in Juneau. We've had either rain or snow for 53 days straight. So I'm glad to be talking with folks who are outside.
Yeah, we it's currently raining today, but not 53 days straight. We get a lot of sun here in Texas. So I don't know what I would do if I had 53 days, but I guess you get used to it after a while.
We do, yeah.
Okay, so a lot going on in Alaska right now. You want to give us a brief overview of what's been happening and what exactly the AML is?
Sure. So the Alaska Municipal League is similar to the city or county associations found in other states. And so every other state has both, either a league of cities or an association of cities and a county association. And in Alaska, just because we're different, we're unique in having one organization that serves the needs both of cities and counties, or in Alaska's case, boroughs. We predate statehood, so we're more than 50 years old. I think we're almost 70 at this point. But we have 165 members, so local governments across Alaska who belong to AML, and we respond to their needs.
Okay. So historically, we think of Alaska as one of the nomad states, those states that don't have a state-level general sales tax. And Alaska is the A in nomad, but it's really nomad no more at this point, because the AML is come up with an economic nexus. You want to tell us a little bit about the economic nexus in Alaska?
Yeah, and maybe I'll just preface it by saying that, this has been a forefront of local government's attention since Wayfair. That we spent a year or more in negotiation with members about how to respond. And when it comes to Nexus, our understanding of Wayfair is that once economic nexus is established in a state, it's a statewide test. Once that's been established, then local governments should be able to apply their taxing authority. At the same time, Wayfair called for streamlined, single-level, statewide administration, which means that 106 different taxing jurisdictions need to work together and basically establish centralized administration. So with those kind of principles in place, AML's members came together, established a governance committee, and have basically stood up a centralized administration for the collection of remote sales tax in Alaska. There's an intergovernmental agreement that commits them to cooperation. There's a commission that's formed through that agreement with a board of directors that sets the rules of the road for how to approach sales tax collection, and who passed a uniform code. So a single remote sales tax code that will apply to all jurisdictions who adopt it.
Okay. And if memory serves me correct, you're following South Dakota with the $100,000 and 200 transaction thresholds?
Yeah, and clearly other states have approached it differently. Alaska's, we felt comfortable with that criteria threshold. So it's 100,000 in annual statewide gross sales, or 200 statewide transactions annually.
Nils,
Yeah.
what about, oh, go ahead, Mike. Did you have something you wanted to ask?
No, by all means, Ellie.
Yeah, Nils, so you're talking a lot about what people need to do, what's changing. So what about the people who are non-compliant? Are there penalties?
In terms of sellers who are non-compliant?
Yeah.
I think, so right now, this is a new process for Alaska. And I think not only are sellers coming to grips with this new reality of nomad no more, but so are local jurisdictions. And so I think, right now we're looking at, we passed the Uniform Code January 6th. The first jurisdiction adopted it February 3rd. We've had roughly 10 more since then, and expect 30 in the next couple months. So, we're just gaining momentum here in Alaska in terms of local jurisdictions adopting the code. I think right now we have, basically jurisdictions who represent the majority of sales tax collected in the state who have passed the code. So we're just now in a place where we're ramping up communications out to sellers saying, hey, if you met this threshold last year, you should be registering. And basically the effective date for compliance should be April 1st. So it's a 30-day effective period plus a grace period up to the next first of the month. So we really want to be responsive to sellers for whom this is a new reality, and we want to work with them to become compliant. And when it comes to compliance, the commission has audit authority, and will basically begin working to ensure compliance for those jurisdictions who have passed the code.
Do you know what jurisdictions are participating and which aren't?
Yeah, right now, so out of 106, I mean, it's extensive in terms of the numbers who could be. Those first 30 are going to represent 87% of all sales tax collected in the state. And everybody else, I think, will take a lot more time. But the big ones, I think, for sellers to know about are the top 10: Juneau, Kenai and Kenai cities, Wasilla, Ketchikan is coming, Kodiak is coming. So there's kind of the top 10 in terms of who's collecting generally will have adopted the code, and we'll need compliance by April 1st.
You're really letting us grill you here, and with this information off the top of your head, I really appreciate it, Nils. So, okay, another question here. So recently, Wasilla voted. They had 2 dissenting votes, and it doesn't look like some of the other smaller jurisdictions will join right away. I can't imagine that there are companies voluntarily registering. What do you think local jurisdictions do not want to participate? Why? I'm so sorry. Why do you think local jurisdictions do not want to participate, or members of the councils vote against it?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things at work. So one, there are communities who currently receive remote sales tax. That there are remote sellers who are collecting either voluntarily or who believe they have a physical nexus in the state. So there's definitely a group of municipalities who believe, does this disturb, what we're currently getting? How does this change what we're currently getting? And does it negatively impact us in some way? Because there are fees associated with the commission's centralized administration. So they're weighing those costs and benefits. And I think overwhelmingly we've seen communities understand that there are greater benefits to participation than not. I think for a lot of the smaller communities, it's a capacity issue. So one, it's updating their current physical sales tax code to be able to mirror and come to alignment with the uniform code. So there's a lot of work there where those smaller communities just need to spend more time in updating their code and then adopting the uniform code. And then finally, there's certainly members of councils and assemblies who see this as an additional tax, or at least an increased level of taxation on residents. And while generally speaking, those who have adopted the code are doing so because it levels the playing field for businesses in their communities, Alaska is an expensive place to live. And so, for any additional tax that's collected, it's not remote sellers who are paying that tax, it's residents who are paying that tax. And I think council members are really cognizant of wanting to keep costs and keep goods and services affordable in Alaska.
Okay, well, Nils, I got a question about marketplaces. A lot of these states that have implemented economic nexus have also implemented, marketplace facilitated collection. Is that on the board here? Are marketplaces going to be required to apply these economic nexus thresholds and begin collecting on behalf of third parties?
Yep. Yeah. And so the Uniform Code that's been adopted treats marketplace facilitators as sellers and calls out specifically both sellers and marketplace facilitators. So we've combined our approach in terms of remote sales and marketplaces, and requiring that both register and begin collection. And we've had good discussions already with some of those marketplace facilitators, are encouraged by their intent to comply.
Okay. Once a marketplace does comply, the thresholds, a lot of states are excluding marketplace sales from their thresholds. Other states are including that. Any idea what Alaska is going to be doing? You're going to, include those or exclude those once the marketplaces do start collecting?
Yeah. So I think that I can check on this, but right now we include them and treat them similarly to a remote seller.
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right. So what about registrations? A lot of states are saying, if you don't have any taxable sales in Alaska or in their state, for example, if 100% of your sales are on a marketplace, and now that marketplace is collecting and remitting the tax on your behalf, do you still need to be registered in the state, or since you don't have any taxable sales, is that okay not to register?
Right. Good question. I think that for those, I think it's the marketplace that's registering. And so I can check though and follow up with a cleaner answer for you though.
Great. Yeah, most states, are not requiring registration, but there are a handful out there that still require registration,
yeah.
Even though that the marketplace is responsible for those sales.
Right. And it just seems, one of the things that has been ever present for the commission is how do we, reduce the undue burden on interstate commerce and on remote sellers and marketplaces. So it does seem like the less cumbersome we can make this in terms of registration, the more simplified it can be, the cleaner and easier it'll be for sellers to participate. So that's the important piece for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Nils, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think is important for our listeners to know about what's happening in Alaska right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that given, I don't know that everybody's familiar with the current fiscal condition within the state. Certainly the state of Alaska, while it doesn't have a broad-based tax, it's struggling financially, and with kind of current crises in place, both with oil prices dropping 25% and coronavirus. The state's really cognizant of how, or really asking itself, what do we need to do to move forward as a government? So broad-based taxes are out there. Sales tax, I think statewide sales tax is probably easier for the legislature to pass than an income tax. So there's that as a potential kind of big question mark for us, but for sellers in the state generally. So there's ways that works out just fine for us. Basically the state could join the commission and we could collect remote sales tax for it. But we're hopeful to be able to negotiate that pretty closely with the state and ensure that there's mutual benefit for both sides.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. And the coronavirus, everyone's been trying to get their arms around that, but this break in oil prices that just came out of left field. So Alaska, probably one of the hardest hit states when it comes to oil prices. So understandable on all of that.
Yeah.
All right. So other than contacting us, we're going to be staying close contact with you and gather information, as it becomes available. But can listeners find out directly from you? Can they contact you directly, or is there a website out there where they can get more information?
Yeah. And so we've launched a website for the commission, arsstc.org. And you'll find all the background information in terms of how we got to this point. There you'll find information for local governments who are standing up and adopting the code and part of the commission now. And I think most importantly, you'll find two additional websites. One where you can register and it can accommodate all the returns and remittance. And then a second is the tax lookup map. So this will be for as jurisdictions adopt the code. We'll make sure that their rates, their exemptions are all correct, that sellers have access to that API code if they need that to plug into their software. But basically everything sellers will need to comply is right now on that website.
That's great. And, with your permission, when we release this podcast, we'd like to make those links available when we put it out there.
Perfect. Yeah. And do feel free to contact us. Our team is answering a ton of questions right now. And really that's what we're here for. We view this as a partnership. We want to make sure that sellers can make this work, and we want to make sure it works for local government. So contact us and let us know if you have questions or need us to troubleshoot anything.
And we'll have to think up a new saying for the nomad states, because it's not nomad and it's nomad no more. So we'll have to.
The only thing I can think of is Mond or something, but that doesn't sound very.
not very pleasant at all.
Not the same ring.
Yeah.
No.
Well, Nils, it's been great. Thank you very much for sharing the information. This is something that is very new. April 1st is going to be the effective date based upon what you're saying. And we're going to be talking to our clients and to our listeners about this on a going forward basis. So thank you again for showing up. And always remember, if you have any other sales tax needs, any other questions, our website is a great source, and we offer a lot of services that you can access through the website also. And thanks for listening to this episode of the Sales Tax and More podcast. We hope to see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to click subscribe and check out all of the resources we have out on the web